Guys, welcome back to episode 17 of the Creators Corner podcast. Today we have none other than Jordan Schwarzenberger. This episode is absolutely killer, and I'm super excited for it.
Who is Jordan Schwarzenberger? Jordan Schwarzenberger is the manager of the frickin' Sidemen, UK's largest content creation group. And he's the one behind scaling their entire business model to $100 million empire. So in this episode, we're going to be going, deep into exactly how he did that and how you can do it for yourself as well. Enjoy.
So, Jordan, as we all know, you're managing one of the biggest YouTube collectives on the planet, co-founding companies and doing crazy stuff behind the scenes, correct? But before all this, let's take a step back. How did it all start for you? What was the origin story that got you into this entire space?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you guys for having me. What got me into this space? I've been doing this now for like 10 years. So I started off, and there's nothing new under the sun, right? Everything goes in cycles, as I've come to learn, feeling like an old man in this industry now, even though I'm 27. But nothing new under the sun. So the first, iteration of audience at scale distributed online was like online publishers before social publishers. So you had like your Vice magazines, you had your enemies, you had all these guys who sort of evolved into sort of online, I would call them like internet publishers. So not even really social, because social was kind of early doors. So I started working at Vice when I was 18. I did work experience there at 17, and then joined them full time. I think I was 18. And I dropped out of uni. I was there for 12 weeks, hated every minute of it. And I've been doing work experience advice before that. And then I did work experience as well while I was at uni. And I just like the night and day experience of being at university and hating everything about it, and being in an environment that was totally away from the industry, to then working at the heart of, at the time, where the industry was really taking shape. Advice was like this night and day thing, which was like, I just can't be here anymore. And I remember being at the Christmas party with the creative director and the associate creative director of Vice, two people who are my line managers. I was there as a junior creative, and they were like, look, we don't want to like annoy your parents, but if you want to come work for us and with us, like, we'd love to have you. So I said like very quickly yes, and dropped out of uni that next day, handed in all my stuff, and started there as their youngest ever junior creative in 2016. And I think that was like the starting point for me, where you go, all right, like, how do you build audiences, and how do you, in my case, like commercialize those audiences properly? Because that my role there was as a creative in the agency function. So most people don't even know, right, that an agency exists within these businesses to help brands actually engage with this audience properly. And so that's why I went to do that. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm really understanding and learning that mechanic of audience opportunity over here, a brand that wants to engage the audience over here, and then the function that has to meet both of those worlds in the middle neatly, which is the agency, to help the brand to actually engage the audience through creative content that lands, that hits, that's editorially sound, and that works for both parties. So that was like the starting point of, all right, you can commercialize audiences and turn them into businesses.
Right.
And then from there I went to Lab Bible, which was the biggest social publisher in the Facebook era, which was like the next iteration of that.
Yes.
And I was there coming from Vice with I came with the guy who was the MD of the agency at Vice, called Ian, who's amazing. And he was the first person who actually hired me, and he asked me, he was like, oh, do you want to come with me to Lad to set up the same thing over there? Thought for 2 seconds about it and was like, well, I'm 18 at the time. What on earth have I got to do? He's like, why would I not do it? You're gonna learn more trying new things than staying still. So I did that, and loved it. And I was there for a year and a half. Lab Bible went on this incredible ascent. We came there, it was like some shoddy little office in the back of Old Street, and then became now this like public company. It's like 300 million valuation, I think, at the time that they went public. I'm pretty sure it did incredibly well, right? And it's on this warpath still. And that all came from the same principles of Vice. You build audience, you have a strong editorial audience, which connects deeply at scale. You then have a commercial function, which allows brands and partners to integrate into that audience. You meet those two worlds in the middle, and then you've got a really solid business model that can just scale and scale and scale. As the audience gets bigger, the value for advertisers gets bigger. Ultimately, though, the North Star always is audience, each and every time.
Right.
And then from that point, I started my own agency called Roundabout, which was like a Gen Z marketing company, and then met a bunch of companies along the way, and then ended up falling into a company called YMU, which is a management company looking after most of the big names in TV. Mm-hmm. And I remember going there and going, wait a minute, this is the same thing. You've got audience, you've got social that connects to audience. If you treat talent like a publisher, you're going to be able to drive huge amounts of commercial upside, because brands can therefore connect with the audiences that you've got in this management company. And in theory, that management company had hundreds of millions of followers and subscribers across all the different talent that they looked after. So you've actually got this pool of audience that can be segmented into different verticals: sport, entertainment, music, etc. So for brands and partners who want to engage those audiences, it's almost a dream. So that was my remit. I came in there as chief creative officer, and the role was to really future-proof the business. So I did things like sign more, culturally relevant talent, people like an Amelia de Moldenberg, Chicken Shop Date when she was starting out. Worked with her, luckily, for like for my whole time there before I left. People like Munya Chihuahua, Zach and Jay, Woody and Kleiny. Who else? A bunch of people who were just like way more relevant, more future-proof, more exciting and dynamic. And that was my remit there, was to really make it just more relevant. So yeah, man. Then from there, I met Sam and Aaron I'd worked with at YMU. He was there with me on the accounting side. He'd gone off to start his own management firm to look after TikTokers at that point. And then you go, all right, well, all these principles, where's this all moving? It's moving towards talent and personalities becoming the heart of audience connection. And therefore, you need to follow that train. And I remember then meeting with Sam and Aaron, we got all together and we said, look, Sam's been the accountant for the Sidemen for the last 10 years. And he's seen this opportunity for them in a different way. He didn't know maybe how to articulate it from a business perspective, but knew that they could do a lot more because they were so poorly at the time managed, had no real infrastructure or team. They had one person on payroll. They had nothing really beneath them. So if you apply all those principles of, Vice, of Lab Bible, of, YMU, talent as publisher, talent as agency, talent as production company, as operator, and as business, right? Talent as corporate, you could create some amazing things. So that was the pitch to the guys. It was like, well, look, let's come together and actually build something meaningful for you away from content. Let's build brands together. Let's build ventures. Let's build you infrastructure and a team so that you're then set up for the rest of your life with an infrastructure that can work and build forever. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So we did. And 4 years later, we've done a whole heap of different things and had a lot of fun. And launched 6 companies, Netflix show, documentary, Christmas #1, built the team out to, I think, 55 people in Sidemen Entertainment with them. It's just gone from this, I think the key is it's gone from talent to media company. That's the jump. It's like from individuals who make content together into media infrastructure and company with ventures as well. So that's like the big jump. And they're the best people to work with ever. Like, they're so easy. They have their moments, of course, everyone does, where things aren't quite right or they want things changed, but they're incredibly easy as a 7 versus as an individual talent, where like they can come to decisions democratically. That really helps. And man, it's been like we've had the best time. It's like the best job in the world. Like, we get to just do random stuff all day, every day, launch businesses in different verticals, try things, see if they work. There's money to try. There's intent to take risk. It's the best creative environment I've ever been in. So very happy and love every minute, really.
Wow, no, that's amazing. And to see where you started from where you were to where you're at right now is like truly inspiring.
It is because like starting from scratch, starting from nothing, essentially, like no college degree, no fancy degree, no formal path of education, and you sort of took a leap of faith. You bet on yourself, correct? And I actually
totally, man.
Yeah, and I actually have a follow-up question with that. And it was like, how did you know that that was your calling? So, because I think a lot of people in our age, they want to drop out of university and go after the most glamorous thing at the moment and, go down this path. But I'm sure it mustn't have been easy. And so what could you say to people that are currently in your position with all the knowledge that you have right now?
Or like, to rephrase that, like, what was that tipping point? This is what I wanted to do.
I mean, I think for me, like, I've always been somebody who's gone after what feels right rather than what I'm told is right, because I think, especially in this world, right, where things are changing all the time, and when there aren't gatekeepers anymore, right, everyone has access to a phone, everyone has access to social, everyone can reach audience, and ultimately all value in media comes from audience. Everything does. So the minute that clicks, you're like, oh wait, audience is the key. Then you follow the audience. Because without audience, there's no value for advertisers. Without value for advertisers, there's no AdSense dollars. There's no brand partnerships. There's no money flowing into any of it. You can't build your own brands, nothing. Everything comes from audience. So I think it was for me this like moment when I was maybe, when I was at Vice, I'll sit down for a bit. When I was at Vice and I was like, actually, this is where the value is. This is where opportunity is. This is where culture is. And it was just this sense being in that office and seeing the people there where I was like, why would I want to be in a uni hall? Like, it's just that dichotomy of I'm in this lecture hall learning trash that's costing me money, why would I not want to just start if I know where the starting point is? I think a lot of the time for young people, they don't even know where the starting block is. They don't know where to even begin, right? They don't understand that there's a business behind these companies. They don't even understand that these companies have an access point. They don't know where to start. So for a lot of people, university becomes almost like the kind of bridge
Mm-hmm.
between them as kids into the starting block. And yeah, it costs 30 grand or whatever it costs, 40K for most people in this country, often with courses that are a waste of time. You're often way further behind by the time you end up because everything's moved on so much further than you think. And you've missed the opportunity to just spend those 4 years learning to actually spending those 4 years doing. And I'm a big believer that in this day and age, culture moves so quickly, you got to just get on with it. Because like, if I think those 4 years, I wasn't even at Vice for 4 years. I was at Vice for a year. And then I was at Lab Bible for a year and a half. And then so within the time that most of my friends hadn't even left uni yet, I'd been at two companies and started my own. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just because I just got on with it, right? So I think for me, it's the moment was like sitting there and going to that university and just looking it around and going like, what, this is such a waste of time. And then being at Vice every Friday and looking at the culture there, the people there, the work we were doing, the projects, even though I was like, creative intern or whatever it was so much. I learned more there in a day than I did my whole time at uni
Right.
for those long, boring 12 weeks. I mean, I think we all know instinctively when something is right and wrong. And often it's our parents or it's other factors that stop us from just taking the leap that we know is right or wrong. But we have to pretend that it's right when it's wrong or wrong when it's right sometimes. I think, truth ultimately prevails and you know it. You know it in your bones. I knew it then. And I think I thankfully took the leap because if I didn't do that, no way I'd be here. I'd probably be miserable at home. Would have none of the security, have none of the opportunity because I got 4 years of a head start. And even now, bro, like I can't even tell you one person who's come out of university who's better off than before they started off in real terms. I can't tell you one person who was like, yeah, I went to university and it got me my opportunity that set me up for life. Or I went to university, it was worth the money. Everyone just had a like piss up for 4 years, had a good time, quote unquote. They just got drunk, like did whatever they did and left, and then they're back at home and they're in the same position as when they started. And you've literally spent 4 years to go nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's the vast. I can think of maybe one or two. I can't even think of off the top of my head. But like that's the majority of cases. So for me, it was instinctive. It was like it was so certain that wasn't right, and that this being in it was where I had to be.
Right. No, 100%. So I can really relate with that because right now I'm in university and managing content and podcasts and school and work and everything, it does catch up to you. So I'm curious, like, specifically for content creators, like like with the current creator economy right now, right? Like we're seeing like so many brands coming up, like we're seeing Prime, and I believe Will Nee just started a coffee brand, which I saw in your email newsletter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious, like, I believe you mentor people for it. So how can creators effectively and, very well, like, differentiate themselves in like a very saturated market in 2025?
It's a really good question. I think look, if we're talking about creator brands, maybe as a starting point, and then we'll talk about content. From in terms of creator brands, I think the vast majority of people shouldn't bother, shouldn't go near them
Right.
for so many reasons. The main reason being cost. These things are so expensive. It's very, very expensive to run a brand when the expectation from partners is all the way up here.
Yeah.
When you have audience, right? And this is the thing, all eyes are on from day one,
Yeah.
and the expectation is that you're just going to sell incredible numbers forever. Obviously, in reality, that doesn't happen. You fluctuate. There's some good rate of sale at some moments, then not. Maybe the product sucks and actually you don't have a very good rate of sale. Maybe you have. I talked about it in the newsletter and I did a TikTok about it yesterday. How like the biggest challenge for Rods, Will and his company, the same way it's for Sidemen's products and everything else, is how do you sustain for the long term, right? Because ultimately launching is easy.
Mm-hmm.
These are creators, these are creative teams, these are like launching is easy. The hard bit is after a year, 2 years, 3 years, when like sales are slowing down, you need to support them, or retailers are getting frustrated because they bought a lot of stock thinking it would sell out forever and then it didn't. And obviously every hype piece dies off. So the key then is financially, and this is the key, it's not even creatively supporting it, it's financially supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you have to have a partner with deep enough pockets and long enough intent to be able to fund what will be sunk costs for a long time. Because ultimately, right, coffee makes no money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Prime makes no, like in real terms with retailers, retail makes no money. Retail makes very little unless you're doing obscene numbers. For example, Mr. Beast does 250 million in Feastable sales, or did last year, through retailers. Great, amazing. Hershey's does 4 billion or something crazy like that, right? But they do 250 million. And of that, they made 20 million in profit into the company. And from that, they still have to pay the marketing team, their sales team, their CEO. Don't get me wrong, 20 million is a lot of money. That's good. But from 250 million in sales, you see this. And the amount of money they have to pump into marketing, they're sponsoring things like the charity match. They did their partnerships in the NBA. They're doing all their content production. All of that's coming out of that 20 million. And yes, don't get me wrong, that's a good amount of money to play with to build a brand. But that's a under 10% margin into the company that owns the brand. And then from that, you've then got to fund and support the whole building of the brand, right?
Yeah.
And that's at the highest level. So like you're looking at an 8% margin gross, and then what's your net margin in that company? It might be, I don't know. You might maybe spending 5 million, like 10, another 10 mil. Maybe you're left with 10 million. Don't get me wrong, that's a good amount of money in a company at the end of the day. Great, right? Maybe, but probably less because they're putting it all back in. But ultimately, it's like you realize that's at the highest level. And that's also with a product that they've managed, I think, to get decent margins because they run most of the supply chain themselves.
Yeah.
Which cuts. So if you're not, none of these creative brands, I will and these one will not be running their own supply. Of course not. It costs so much to build the factories, to get supply chain going. You need a partner to do it with you. All of our brands are with partnerships because no way are the Sidemen going to invest in a factory to make cereal. What does that do though? Like, why would we? It's stupid, right? But what that does do is it means your margin comes all the way down. So
Right.
you're left with even less because the person who's taking the risk of manufacturing then collects most of the money. Now, great if you're looking to build a brand for the long term. It's an IP play. You're trying to drive long-term value in the IP and sell the IP one day through volume and sales, etc. You're not really worried about it making money. You don't really need the money for it to grow. But still, even with that, and even with low cost, you need to be able to fund it. And these brands to do well require millions. They do. They require millions and millions and millions. And somebody has to pay that. So either it's a partner who does it and who funds it, but then, are they incentivized enough, etc.? Are they in it for the long haul? Do they have the pockets? Maybe. Or it's the creator who has to fund it. Most creators don't have millions sitting in the bank. So you're stuck in this trap where you're like, this needs a lot of money. And this is specifically for physical products. Now, I believe most creators should avoid physical products like the plague because they're a headache, unless you have the size like the Sidemen to attract the best partners. However, they should be getting into digital products. Why did we all go into physical products? Why did we all launch drinks brands that cost £2 at retail and you net 40p a can, 30p a can? It's stupid. I don't know why we all did it. Whereas in reality, and yes, there's brand building value, of course, but in reality, it's silly if you think about it, just on a business model perspective, because creators have digital audiences that are scaled globally. Why do we not go into software? Why do we not go into tech? Why do we not go into more things like Side Plus? And when you look at the numbers, you're going from maybe an 8% net margin to an 80% net margin.
Right.
90% margin.
Yeah.
So you can get, and then you can get cash flow plus off the back of cash flow, you can get, value in the business. And obviously in tech, where everything's driven by, ARR and everything else, you could be in a position where your annual recurring revenue is driving your valuation at a 10x multiple.
Right.
So if you could be making $1 million a year, that might be able to sell for 10 to 15. That's tech valuation, especially if there's something interesting in the story and the product, etc. So my big thing for me is like creators shouldn't bother with physical products unless they have like the Sidemen do, maybe Will and he does. I don't know his back end, but it's a great launch, obviously, and everything's brilliant with it. But most creators shouldn't follow that model. They should be going into digital products that scale really well, software, tech, for sure. That's an area where I think for creators, super interesting, lots of upside and potential. Physical products, not so much. And then to question on how do creators stand out in a very crowded market.
Yeah.
I would say the key, I'd say like there's twofold. One is, are you trying to build scaled audience or like a sharp focused committed community, right? What are you trying to build? Are you trying to be viral or are you trying to build something of value? If you're trying to build something of value, work back from a commercial perspective, right? So what I mean by that is think through who the potential advertisers for your content brand might be from before you start.
Right.
So if I was starting from scratch, I'd say, right, look, well, let's say, for example, my passion has to align with something commercial, else it's not going to get funded. So my passion might be football. Great. Well, football's an incredibly commercial area. What are the potential advertisers? Well, you've got the betting companies, you've potentially got the channels who are promoting, but really the betting companies produce a lot of maybe the alcohol companies, maybe you've got travel companies, you've got a whole world of brands that are dying to get into sport.
Yeah.
So how do I then reverse engineer my brand backwards from the point of, is it commercial to even bother? Because yes, passion driven creators can scale very well, but they might not build a business out of it that makes it worthwhile enough to keep going. So it's like working out what do you want from this. If you want it to be a full-time job, you want it to be a career, you have to work back from a commercial understanding of advertisers, because what you're building is a media publisher. And this is the bit for creators today, right? And this is the bit that's going to change rapidly. And Sidemen hopefully will be able to lead the way. We are building the Sidemen are a media publisher. Okay. And we're building, if you will, vehicles like the exact same model of Virtue Advice and Lab Bible Commercial Solutions, which was Joyride when I was there, their agency functions, the exact same thing. You're building an audience with an opportunity for advertisers, and you work back from that into, creating, an approach to market that allows advertisers to buy the inventory and buy the audience. And then you've got a business. But if a creator is just building, all for art's sake, great. But if you're not thinking commercially, you're not going to be able to fund it. It won't make you any money. You'll probably not be able to keep it going. Because yes, all ideas are great, but they need money to fund them. So when I think about some creators, even some I know who, they work labor, they dig labor, they haven't put a lot of time, effort, and money into content that goes out maybe once a month. They do one video a month, and it's just generic sort of YouTube entertainment. Let's say they get trapped because what happens is they can't get the volume up enough to be able to drive enough ad sets to make it worthwhile. The content is too expensive to produce versus the return in terms of their audience and their views. But also they're stuck on a treadmill trying to produce the next one. So the sharpest, best commercial creators are the ones that have a theme or a genre that advertisers can buy, which is why if you're a finance creator, that's why everyone talks about niches on YouTube. People don't really talk about the advertiser element to it. They just say, go into a high CPM niche. But what does that actually mean? It means you're going into a niche where there's advertisers spending money because your content is targeted around an audience opportunity for a brand. So you're building an audience which a brand will want to sell to. That's all anyone on social is really doing who's getting paid for their content, really, especially on YouTube. So you need to think back from that. So that's the thing I would say to Senna. Don't necessarily go creativity first, but think strategically about the commercial potential of what you're trying to build before you start it, not just in terms of AdSense, but also beyond it, right? Are you building in a sector that has commercial upside? And if you put the time and energy into it, it will actually pay you off. What won't necessarily pay you off is virality. Virality won't. Speed is a good example. Speed has done very well because he's actually got touch points that brands can latch onto. Football, travel. Those are two themes that commercially brands can immediately connect with. They can say, well, I see how I can integrate into football, sport, and travel. Great. Well, let's get you in with this. If he was just generic entertainment, it wouldn't work. So you need touch points. You need areas for brands to latch onto. Brands want a simple, easy job. And if you think first from advertisers back, you'll then build a business on YouTube. And as a creator, I think that is commercially long-term rather than trying to go viral with no real aim or purpose, maybe going viral but having no money. And that's a lot of creators today. They get big numbers on TikTok and social short form. Maybe they're doing okay on YouTube, probably not if they're focused on short form, but they'll end up having a poorly commercialized brand and they won't be able to sustain it.
Right. So a quick question about Speed though, right? Because like Speed started, he's got like football, he's got travel and everything happening, but he just started off with playing, video games on stream.
Totally.
So of course you start somewhere, with your YouTube or content. So eventually, how do you eventually start scaling that up to like, broader varieties? Because everyone says you got to niche down and then eventually scale it up. But like, it's so hard to do that because of course, you are human at the end of the day. You want to try different things with content.
Totally.
How do you?
I think it depends on who you're trying. I feel like Speed's probably not the best example actually because he gives his whole life to content, so it's different. I think this is the key. It's like balancing it for your life. Somebody like Speed or some of the streamers, their whole life is content, so it's really connecting with them. Speed could be doing anything, and people will connect because they like him, and he's got this incredible mystery around him, this sort of sense of unexpected. He's sort of, as we know, everything about him that just makes him so impactful as an entertainer with trying and without trying. It's like effortless to him. Very rare sort of case, but also somebody who's built a cult of personality around him. Now that's rare because not everyone has the luxury and again, he started when he was a kid, right? He started when he was 17. So he can do it at a time when he's not thinking about work. He's not thinking about his job. He's not thinking about paying the bills. He's got no responsibilities on that front, or probably not. I mean, I don't want to, maybe he did, but I doubt it. Rent and all that because you're home with your parents. So if you can break at that age, right, you can just break in almost like a general personality sense, because you give your life to content. Because what else are you doing with your time? When you get to an adult and you've got responsibilities, you've got a full-time job, you're trying to do this on the side, you have to pay the bills, you've got like real life coming at you. You have to think more commercially and more strategically. Otherwise, there's no point. And if it's more of an outlet for creativity purely, fine, but then be honest with that, they probably won't build into a commercial brand or the risk is high. However, if you think commercial first, this is what I'm saying about standing out, you'll be able to fund your ideas to the point where you can then have it take over your full-time job and become full-time. So if you can dedicate your whole life to it, yeah, you can do all sorts of different stuff because you're just spending your whole life, you're giving your whole personality, everything. But when you grow up a little bit and your reputation is on the line, you've got a job, you've got people in the office, you've got like a lot of stuff going on, it's really hard to make the transition from part-time to full-time. Now that transition can happen if you're commercially minded in the way that you create. So it's just thinking like practically in terms of people's lives and time. Time is the biggest thing. Time and money. Like content is
Right.
time, a lot of time or a lot of money. It's time if you're doing it yourself. It's money if you're getting others to do it. And there's just a balancing act there that has to be done prudently to make it worthwhile enough for you to either leave your job to do it full time or just have as a part time thing that you do. But that's when you're an adult. When you're a kid, it's a bit different. That's why people should start younger, like if they really want to. But then, of course, you have the challenge of you do stupid stuff. What happens if you cancel yourself before you even left your parents' house? Is
Yeah.
that and that can happen too. So it's all just like it's very human. I think it's a very human equation to work out. Sorry, based on where people are in their lives.
Right. No, that
That's
makes
fair.
sense.
Thank you so much for that. And I do believe that finding that balance and sort of starting early on is the right move. The only way to like know if you're gonna be good at it or or understanding if this is what you want to do full time is like by actually doing it, right? It's by taking that first step, taking that first action. And I think that brings me to my question where how do you think people, given the way the current world is moving, right? Like you said, content moves really quickly. People find it really easy to like do a billion things, but like not be able to like master one thing and really like scale that up, like, or even like niche down. And people trying to balance work, life, everything, starting a business. It gets chaotic to a point where people end up giving up and then are happy with their 9 to 5 lives. What advice would you have for the people that are looking to actually break into the online world, whether be it like online products or social media creation or YouTube full time, or even like what Speed does, right? Just content,
Streaming.
content,
Yeah.
content. What
I'd
advice
say
for people like that?
I would say just focus on building an audience. Audience is gold.
Hmm.
So if you can find a way, learn how, and it's a skill, but it's not the kids are doing it at 12, 11. It's not like you can do it. Build an audience and become obsessive about understanding how to build audience and how to grow because audience is leverage
Yes.
in whatever you're doing. If you're an editor, if you have an audience, you're going to get jobs more than people that don't. If you're a producer, a writer, a filmmaker, if you run a bakery, if you run a whatever, this is the whole thing like a creative premise. That if those who think like creators and build audience and are obsessed about audience and whatever they do will have infinitely more leverage than those that don't. And everyone has access to building audience. So if you can just master that, and that takes time, it's just reps.
Mhm.
It's like you got to be getting in the reps and being committed to learning how to grow. And eventually you will, and then you'll never have to worry again, really, because you'll have leverage, and the leverage will take you on from there. So I think it's building audience, learning how to grow, learning what's new, and just starting. I think that's the way you get good. You have to suck before you become good at making content. You have to suck at social before you get good at it, and it just takes time. And then you meet people who are experts. What if they've put out, same at Lab Bible, same advice, same at any of these places. They deeply understand what works and what doesn't because they've just done the reps. And they're to the point where that's not going to hit, that's going to work before you've even done it, right? And that's where you want to get to. And I think that's purely about time. So I think find a way to be consistent, to be committed daily to making content, to be putting it out, whatever it is that you do. And you'll thank yourself in 5 years' time when you have an audience because you will if you persevere. The majority of people just don't get past that consistency element for like a month. So if you can get past a month, you're probably better than 70% of people, 80% of people who try. If you get past 2 months, you're probably better than 91%, 95%. If you get past 3 months, you're probably in the top 1%. That's all you need. It's a consistency game. Most people are lazy, they don't carry it, they don't follow through. So that'd be my advice. Just be consistent, start, embrace sucking before you can become good, and just get on with it.
100%.
I like that, embrace sucking, just be yourself and put yourself out there. That's what you said, and that's great. And
Just a quick question about that though, right? Like it's kind of a pivot here, but you have mentioned, right? There is a difference between short form content viewers and long form content viewers. 100% there has to be a difference, right? Because well, short form are more like casual, I'd say,
yeah.
while long form are gonna be like the real fans. So like I'm curious for growth and for creating that audience, which one should people be even like pivoting towards to begin with
To create super fans.
to
Yeah.
create super fans? Yeah.
Yeah, very quickly, I would say I'd say focus. You will learn your audience and you'll learn your voice, and it's finding your voice and finding the thing that actually connects through just time and reps. If you can do it, if you can put out enough, you will learn very quickly what connects, what doesn't, and your audience and your fans will grow if you have something of value to say, and that will come through time. So I'd say just the key is just volume, starting, getting going, and then over time you'll learn who the fans are, who people, what connects with others about you. You won't even know that yet. And that's one thing I've learned. You will know that once you've done enough to be like, oh, I've done 20 videos and these 5 things really work and connect. These 15 things don't. Why was that? And then you do more of that and you realize, oh, that's the thing that people want from me. It's finding what people want from you. And I think, yeah, then if you do that, you'll be all right. But guys, I need to, sadly, I need to jump.
100%.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully that was useful.
Yeah.
That was really good.
If you want to do a part 2, anytime, just let me know.
100%. Thank you so much.
Nice one, guys. Thank you so much.